All right, scholars, we are trying to answer this big question. How do culture, time, and place affect Naya and Salva's development? Remember that if we are talking about culture, the quote should say something about a religion, tradition, something unique to one group of people. If we're talking about a place, the quote should say something about a location, the terrain, or the environment. And if we are discussing time, the quote should say something about seasons, decades, large holidays or events such as a war, or months, not days or hours. Now look at your handout for today. The first quote says, "There was only heat, the sun already baking the air, even though it was long before noon." My first step was to find the evidence, but I found that for you, and it was on page 1 of A Long Walk to Water. Your second step is to decide if the quote gives an example of culture, time, or place. So looking back at your quote, I see that it says something about the heat, the sun, already baking the air, even though it was long before noon. Now, noon is referring to a time, but if I look back at time, I know it's not talking about days or hours. So then I have to already cross out time. Then I'm thinking about, is there anything in this that indicates culture? Looking back, does it say anything about a religion, tradition, something unique to one group of people? I don't think so, so I would cross off culture as well. That leaves me with place. This quote says something about the location, the terrain, or the environment. Looking at this, I can tell the environment must be hot, already baking the air. Then I move to my third step. Determine how the culture, time, or place will impact, which means change, the character, either Naya or Salva's, development, the way they will think, feel, or act later in the book. Always use complete sentences in this step. Another reminder for development is think about who the character will become in the future. Thinking back on this could impact Naya's development later in the book because I understand that it's incredibly hot where she lives. It gets hot before even noon. Thinking about how this could affect her later in the book, I think that later in the book, Naya could get sick from too much sun exposure. I don't know if this is true or not, but at this step, I'm only trying to make a guess about how this quote could impact her later in the book. You have 3 examples left on your paper. I picked the quotes for you. You are going to do step 2 and 3. Make sure that you remember back to these notes about culture, place, and time. And if you are wondering for step 3 how it will affect the development, refer back to this note. If you have any questions, raise your hand and someone will be right there to help you.